AITA for finally accepting a job in Japan after my wife chose her ex over our Christmas plans. A week later, she came home screaming on the front porch, pounding on the door as if she still owned the place. Back then, she really thought she owned everything. It didn't start with the screaming. It started as a normal, gray Tuesday in Cedar Falls, Iowa. The road salt in the air, people hunched in their coats, just trying to get through another December workday. I had put in a full shift at the manufacturing plant. I stayed late to silence a motor that wouldn't stop whining and stopped by Hy-Vee for milk and a rotisserie chicken. When I walked into the house, it smelled like cinnamon and pine. The small artificial tree in the corner was already lit, colored lights blinking in the front window. That was Sophie's touch. She was 10 and loved Christmas like it was a full-time job. She came sliding into the hallway in her socks. "Dad, Bryce, did you fix the dollhouse roof?" she asked. I held up the little wooden dollhouse I had been working on in the basement. Monica had found it battered at a garage sale. I had spent 3 evenings sanding and gluing after work. "Try it," I said. Sophie leaned on the little pink roof with both hands. It didn't budge. "I told Mom you could fix it," she said proudly. "You always fix everything." I wish that had been true. In the kitchen, Monica stood at the stove with her back to me, stirring a pot of sauce. Her shoulders were tense. I had learned over the years you could read her mood just by how high they were. "Hey," I said, putting the milk in the fridge. "They gave us the Christmas bonus today. It's not much, but it'll cover that bike and then some." She didn't look up. "We need to talk," she said. "Those 4 words are never about anything good." "Okay," I said carefully. "About what?" She turned off the burner, set down the spoon, and turned to face me. She was wearing a nice blouse, lipstick still perfect from work. It struck me that she dressed up more for someone else than for a night at home. "I talked to Derek," she said. Derek, her ex-husband, the man who missed birthdays and parent-teacher conferences, but always had a story about why. "About what?" I asked, though my stomach had already started to knot. "About Christmas," she said as if it were obvious. "He invited us to his cabin this year. He wants to make up for lost time with Sophie. She needs her real father in her life, Bryce." "Monica, we already have plans," I said. "Church service. The dinner at St. Luke's. Your parents." She cut me off with a little wave of her hand. "We have habits," she said, "not plans. You and your church hall dinners with folding chairs. Sophie deserves a real Christmas with a big cabin and a real tree and her real dad." She hit that word like a hammer. I let that sink in for a second. "I thought I was part of that," I said. "I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who reads to her, takes her to the dentist, shows up at school." Her mouth twisted. "You're the stepfather," she said flatly. "Don't make this about you. You knew what you were getting into. Derek is her actual father. She needs that bond. Maybe if you weren't so simple about everything, you'd understand." Something small and quiet broke inside my chest. Not a dramatic snap, more like an old floorboard finally giving way. "And where do I fit in?" I asked. She shrugged. "You don't. This time we're going to the cabin for a week. We leave on the 23rd. If you can't handle it, you can file for divorce, or I will." She said it like she was reading a line from a script she had rehearsed all afternoon. From the living room, Sophie called out, "Mom, are we watching the Christmas movie tonight?" Monica didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on me, waiting for a reaction. I had given her plenty over the years, pleading, arguing, explaining myself like a teenager caught breaking curfew. This time, I just stood there. I thought about the email from Tokyo sitting flagged in my inbox. Final offer, plant maintenance supervisor, Japan. I had turned it down 3 times because Monica didn't want to leave Iowa or her salon or her parents' house 10 minutes away. I thought about my dad, who worked 35 years in the same factory and used to tell me, "Don't ever let anyone treat you like you're just lucky to be in the room." "I understand," I said. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. "When did you tell Sophie?" "Yesterday," she said. "She's excited. She wants to see the snow at the cabin. Derek is picking us up." Of course he was. "Okay," I said. "I'll stay out of your way." Monica blinked. That wasn't the line she was expecting. "That's it," she demanded. "You're not going to yell, call me selfish, threaten to call a lawyer?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "Not tonight." She snorted and turned back to the stove, muttering something about me being spineless. I walked out of the kitchen, past the smell of sauce and the pile of unopened mail on the counter, and into the living room. Sophie had lined up the little wooden family in front of the dollhouse. The dad figure was closest to the door. "Movie time?" I asked. She beamed. "Can we watch the black and white one with the angel again?" "It's a Wonderful Life," I said. "Yeah, we can watch that." She curled up under my arm with a blanket, her head on my shoulder. On the screen, George Bailey's whole life unfolded in front of him. All the small sacrifices and quiet moments nobody else seemed to notice. I watched, but I was thinking about how many times I had said no to that job overseas, how many nights I had fixed things in this house thinking we were building something together. Halfway through, Sophie fell asleep. I carried her to bed, tucked the quilt under her chin, and stood there for a minute, listening to her steady breathing. Downstairs, the house felt different, empty somehow, even with Monica in the bedroom and the TV still murmuring. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled my laptop toward me, and opened the email from Tokyo. "Hi, Kevin," I wrote. "If the position is still available, I would like to accept it." The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. I read it twice. I heard my dad's voice again and hit send. The little whoosh of the email sending sounded louder than it should have in that small kitchen. I didn't pack that night, didn't leave a note, just stood there for a while listening to the furnace kick on and the ice maker clunk to life, the ordinary noises of a house that suddenly wasn't really mine anymore. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet click of the send button was the first step toward the day Monica would be standing in front of a judge, red-faced and furious, as the truth finally caught up with her. When the plane landed in Tokyo, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Quiet. Not peace exactly. More like the quiet after a storm, when the air still smells like rain and you're not sure if it's really over. Tokyo was bright, even at night, full of moving lights, but none of it belonged to me. I checked into a modest apartment the company arranged. A small kitchen, a narrow single bed, and a window looking out onto a street where hurried businessmen passed with black umbrellas. The next morning, I walked the plant with my supervisor, a man named Hiroto, tall, soft-spoken, always smiling politely. He bowed slightly as he introduced me to the crew. They bowed back. Respect, simple, automatic, no strings attached. It felt strange after so many years of walking on eggshells at home. "People here work hard," Hiroto said as we put on safety gear. "But we also look out for each other. You'll fit in." I nodded, but the truth was, I felt like a ghost floating through someone else's life. For my first week, I kept checking my phone. No messages from Monica. That part didn't surprise me. She could go weeks pretending I didn't exist if it suited her. But Sophie, I kept expecting something, a question, a picture, anything. So I sent the first text. "Hey kiddo, hope you're having fun. I'm in Japan now. Miss you." No reply. I tried again a day later. "Sent you a little present. It'll probably take a week to get there. Love you." Still nothing. A few nights later, I bought a small charm at a convenience store, a little wooden fox, a symbol of protection. I packed it up and mailed it to Cedar Falls. It cost more than I expected, but I didn't care. Walking back to my apartment, I passed a family, father, mother, daughter, laughing as the little girl held both their hands and jumped over every crack in the sidewalk. I stopped for a moment, watching them disappear around the corner. That's when the guilt hit me, the heavy kind that sits on your chest like someone is pressing a hand down on you. Had I abandoned Sophie? Was I really any better than Derek, disappearing when things got hard? I tried to shake it off, telling myself I needed time, space, clarity, but guilt has a way of seeping in like winter drafts through old windows. Every night, I checked my email, and every night it was empty. One Saturday, I met a younger coworker named Ryosuke for ramen. He noticed me checking my phone over and over. "Waiting for someone?" he asked. I hesitated. "My daughter. Or my stepdaughter." He nodded. "Complicated. You could say that." He studied me with the same quiet patience I had seen on the plant floor. "Family matters are never simple," he said gently. "But the truth always shows itself." I didn't know then how right he would be. The turn came the following Tuesday. I was sitting on my apartment balcony, eating vending machine soba, when I opened Facebook, something I rarely did. At the top of the feed was a post from a neighbor back in Iowa. A picture, Monica and Sophie standing in front of a big, snow-covered cabin. She was wearing a red sweater I recognized because I bought it for her last Christmas. And next to her was Derek, her ex-husband, wearing my Christmas sweater. The old green one with the embroidered pine tree that Sophie loved because she said it looked happy. They all looked happy. A perfect family picture. Family Christmas at the cabin. The caption read, with 2 heart emojis. I stared at that photo until my food went cold. Something hurt. Not just jealousy, not just betrayal. It was the realization that she had looked me in the eye, told me Sophie needed her real father, and then walked straight into the life she always wanted without me. I zoomed in on the picture, and there came the second blow. Sophie wasn't smiling, not a real smile, not the eye-crinkling one she always gave me. She looked confused, a little lost, like a kid who was told to stand still for a picture she didn't want to take. That did something to me. It broke something and fixed something at the same time. I closed Facebook and scrubbed my face with both hands. I could feel the old guilt turning into something else, resolve. But the worst was still coming. 2 days later, I was in the break room when Ryosuke came in, holding his phone. "Bryce," he said hesitantly. "Your last name is Halverson?" "Yeah," I said slowly. He turned his screen to me. He had found a legal notice posted on a public county website. A divorce filing by Monica Halverson. Reason, abandonment. Date, 3 days after I left for Japan. My chest felt hollow. "She's claiming you left with no intention of returning," Ryosuke said softly, "and that the house and all assets should go to her." I blinked at the screen. "She knew I was taking the job?" I whispered. "She watched me send the email. She practically pushed me out the door." Ryosuke nodded slowly. "Sometimes people choose lies when the truth is inconvenient." I sank into the chair beside me. She wasn't just happy without me. She was trying to erase me completely. I opened my email app again. Nothing from Sophie, nothing from anyone. My phone buzzed. A notification from the tracking app. The charm I sent Sophie had been delivered 2 days ago. No reply. Of course not. Monica must have intercepted it. I felt anger for the first time. Not the hot, shouting kind, but the cold, deliberate kind that settles low and deep. I looked out the window at the narrow street below. Snow had started to fall, soft and silent. Tokyo was busy as ever, but inside me, a kind of clarity formed. I wasn't going back to Iowa to fix my marriage. I was going back to save a little girl who deserved the truth and to make sure her mother finally faced it. I booked my flight home that night. I landed back in Iowa on a wind-burned, cold morning, the kind where the air bites your cheeks the moment you step out of the airport doors. Waterloo Regional was quiet, just a few families in boots and puffy coats dragging luggage over dirty snow. No one was there to meet me. That was fine. I wasn't ready to be seen anyway. I had planned ahead and booked a small room at the VFW Post on Franklin Street. It wasn't fancy, just a comfortable bed and a window looking out at the parking lot, but it felt solid, honest, like the kind of place you stay when you have work to do. I dropped my bag and stood there for a moment, breathing in the smell of old wood and coffee that had been brewing since sunrise. A veteran with a buzz cut nodded at me in the hall. "Haven't seen you in a while, Bryce," he said. "Everything all right?" "Getting there," I said. "Just need a few days to sort some things." He gave me that look older men give each other when they know something has gone wrong, but are decent enough not to pry. That afternoon, I drove by my old house. The driveway was empty. The Christmas wreath was still on the door, tilted a little to one side. In the front window, the small artificial tree still blinked its colored lights. For a moment, it took everything in me not to stop the truck, walk up the steps, and knock. Instead, I kept driving. I needed information before confrontation. My first stop was Black Hawk Credit Union. The teller, a woman named Nora who had known me for years, blinked when she saw me. "Bryce, I thought you moved overseas." "Not permanently," I said. She lowered her voice. "Your wife came in here trying to pull all the money out of the joint account. Made a scene when we told her she couldn't without your signature. Wanted to talk to the manager, then the board. We had to ask her to leave." "I figured as much," I said. "What was her reason?" Nora sighed. "Said you abandoned the family and she needed the funds for emergency expenses. But you know the rules." I nodded. "Yeah, I know how it works." She slid me a printout of the last 3 months' activity, my own transactions on one page, her withdrawal attempts on the other. "Thanks, Nora," I said. "You take care of yourself. You look tired." "I'm working on it." My next stop was Hy-Vee. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to see the place where half the town gathered, where rumors grew legs. I pushed a cart slowly down the produce aisle, listening. People in small towns don't whisper as quietly as they think. Heard he ran off with someone in Japan. Poor Monica, left with the kid and all those bills. Just like her first husband, she sure knows how to pick them. I rounded the corner and nearly ran into a cashier, a woman named Caitlin who had scanned my groceries 1,000 times. Her eyes went wide. Mr. Bryce, so she was lying. She shook her head. She told us you skipped town with a woman half your age after spending the bonus on yourself. I let out a slow breath. Not true. I figured, she said. She crossed her arms. You always struck me as steady. She's been in here 3 times this week complaining about everything. I finally just stopped asking how she was. I appreciated that more than I said. Thanks, Caitlin. She's going to have a fit when she finds out you're back, she said. Be careful. That night, I sat on the bed in the VFW with all the receipts and evidence spread out in front of me. Financial records, screenshots, copies of emails, the printout of the divorce filing with the word abandonment staring up at me like an accusation. But the thing that hit me hardest wasn't a legal document. It was the drawing Sophie had made for me before they left, the picture of us holding hands next to a Christmas tree. I had kept it in my suitcase. I laid it on the bed and just looked at it. She thinks I left her. She thinks I don't want to be her dad anymore. That thought nearly knocked the wind out of me. I called the school the next morning. The receptionist put me through to the counselor, a woman named Ms. Hernandez. Bryce, she said, relieved. I'm so glad to hear from you. Have you spoken to Sophie? I asked. Yes. She's confused. That word again. She asked where you went. I told her that sometimes adults have complicated things to work out, but that you love her. She cried. She said her mom told her you chose Japan over her. My grip tightened on the phone. She actually said that? Yes. I'm sorry, Bryce. Nausea and anger swirled in my throat. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. When the call ended, I stood there for a long time staring at the floor. That was the moment the doubt evaporated. Any guilt I had felt about leaving was gone. I hadn't failed Sophie. Monica had lied to her, and I wasn't going to let that stand. I spent the next 2 days building my case. My old friend, Ethan Calloway, who I had known since high school, was a lawyer now, working out of a small office behind the Casey's gas station. He met me on his lunch hour, looked through my folder, and let out a low whistle. She's really trying to sell the house, claiming abandonment 3 days after you left, blocking your contact with Sophie. The judge isn't going to like any of this. So what do? You file a response, he said, and you show up at the hearing. Her lawyer will be expecting you to be out of the country. That's your advantage. Will it be enough to protect Sophie? He nodded. If what you told me is true, and it sure looks like it is, this will go your way. He closed the folder and slid it back to me. Just stay calm, Bryce. Don't confront her. Let the court handle it. That was the hardest part, staying calm. That night I sat in the VFW parking lot, looking at the courthouse across the river. The snow was starting to fall again, big flakes floating in the streetlights. I thought about the little girl sleeping somewhere on the other side of town, probably clutching that stuffed fox I won for her at the county fair 2 summers ago. I thought about how she looked in that cabin picture. Not smiling. Not really. I made a decision. I wasn't coming back to reclaim a marriage. I was coming back to reclaim a daughter. 2 mornings later, wearing my best shirt and my old brown Carhartt jacket, I walked up the courthouse steps with the folder under my arm. I reached the top, pulled open the heavy glass door, and stepped inside. The Black Hawk County Courthouse always looked a little intimidating, even on warm days, but that morning, with the sky low and gray and the winds cutting across the river, it felt like walking onto a battlefield. My boots echoed on the tiles as I made my way down the long hall to Courtroom 2B. Ethan, my lawyer, was already there, sitting on a bench outside with a stack of papers on his lap. When he saw me, he stood and offered a firm handshake. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. He nodded, adjusting his tie. Monica isn't here yet. Probably thinks you're still in Japan. That'll play to our advantage. We went into the courtroom. The heat was turned up too high, and the old radiators hissed in the corners. A few people sat on the benches, the usual mix of locals dealing with traffic tickets, custody disputes, and property disagreements. Small-town courtrooms are never empty. I took my seat at the respondents' table. The judge wasn't out yet, neither was Monica. For a moment, I let myself breathe. My hands rested on the folder. My evidence. My truth. It felt heavier than it looked. The door swung open behind me. Heels clicked on the floor. Monica walked in wearing a long, red wool coat with a fur collar and boots that looked new, probably a Christmas present to herself. Her hair was curled, makeup perfect, lips bright like a warning sign. Right behind her was her lawyer, a younger guy in an expensive suit with a smug smile plastered on his face. Monica scanned the room with casual confidence until her eyes landed on me. She froze for just a second, but I saw everything I needed to in that moment. Shock, irritation, and a flash of panic. She tried to smother it under a tight smile. "Well," she said, loud enough for the people around to hear. "Look who finally decided to show up." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Ethan leaned toward me. "Don't take the bait. Let her talk." The judge came in then, a stern woman with steel gray hair and glasses low on her nose. Everyone rose. When we all sat again, she glanced at a file. Case number 24 to 1781. Halverson versus Halverson. Matters of divorce and custody. Her eyes moved from one table to the other. "Mr. Halverson, I wasn't expecting you. The petitioner's filing alleged you had left the country indefinitely." Monica clasped her hands primly. "Your Honor, that's what I believed. He abandoned us." Ethan stood. "Objection, Your Honor. My client didn't abandon anyone." The judge held up a hand. "We'll get to that." She looked at me. "Mr. Halverson, since you are present, the court will hear your side." Monica's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, the petitioner maintains that," but the judge cut him off. "Not yet, Mr. Langford. Sit down." He did. The judge turned back to me. "Mr. Halverson, proceed." I stood up. My palms were sweating, but my voice held steady. "I left the country because my wife told me she and Sophie were spending Christmas with her ex-husband," I said. "She told me Sophie needed her real father and that if I didn't like it, I could file for divorce." A murmur went through the room. I continued. "I accepted a job transfer to Japan after turning it down multiple times for the sake of this family. I sent messages and gifts to Sophie. Nothing reached her. I later found out they had been blocked or intercepted. I opened the folder and slid a stack of printed emails onto the table. These are timestamps and tracking confirmations. And these, I added another set of papers, are attempts by the petitioner to withdraw all funds from our joint account and sell the marital home without my signature." Monica's face flushed red. That's not how it happened," she stammered. "Mrs. Halverson," the judge said sharply, "you will have your turn." Ethan passed me another document. I passed it forward. "And this is the divorce filing," I said, "filed 3 days after I left, claiming abandonment." The judge studied the paperwork with a disapproving frown. I stepped back. "Your Honor, I didn't abandon my family. I was pushed out and then replaced." Monica slammed her hands on the table. "Oh, please, he's lying. He ran off with some woman in Japan. Ask anyone." The judge looked faintly amused. "Is that so?" Before Monica's lawyer could stop her, she said, "Yes. Ask the people at Hy-Vee. They know." That was the opening Ethan was hoping for. "Funny you should say that," he said, rising. "Your Honor, we have a witness sitting in the back." Everyone turned as Caitlin, the Hy-Vee cashier, stood up, clutching her purse. The judge nodded. "Ma'am, please approach." Caitlin walked up, cleared her throat, and said plainly, "Your Honor, I've known Bryce and Monica for years." Monica told everyone Bryce ran off with a younger woman and left her with all the bills, but it never sounded right to me. And well, seeing him here proves she wasn't telling the truth. A quiet gasp went through the benches. Monica's jaw tightened. "She doesn't know anything," she snapped, but the damage was done. The judge leaned back, hands clasped. "Mrs. Halverson, you filed for abandonment 3 days after your husband left for a documented job transfer. You attempted to liquidate assets without proper authorization. You blocked communication between the child and her stepfather, who she clearly sees as a parental figure. Do you understand how serious this is?" Monica opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The judge continued. "Based on the evidence, the court sees a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation." Monica's lawyer tried to salvage it. "Your Honor, surely we can." "No," the judge said. "We cannot." She signed a document with a sharp stroke of her pen. "My ruling is as follows. Temporary primary decision-making authority goes to Mr. Halverson." Mrs. Halverson is ordered to cease any attempts to sell the property. Financial misconduct will be reviewed by an auditor. A guardian ad litem will be assigned to determine the best interests of the child, and Mrs. Halverson will repay any improperly withdrawn funds. Monica's face went from pink to crimson. This is ridiculous. He's not even her real father. She yelled. The judge's eyes hardened. Sometimes the real parents are the ones who stay, Mrs. Halverson. Court is adjourned. The gavel hit. Chairs scraped. People whispered. Monica stormed out with her lawyer chasing after her. And then something small broke through the noise. Dad, Bryce. I turned. Sophie was standing just inside the doorway with the school counselor behind her. Her eyes were wet, but her smile was the real one. She ran to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I knew you didn't leave me, she whispered. I couldn't speak, just held her, one hand cradling the back of her head as the courtroom emptied around us. That hug was the moment everything changed. I wasn't the man who left. I was Dad. For a week after the hearing, the house was quiet in a way it had never been when Monica lived there. Not empty, just peaceful. I had moved back in temporarily under the court's order while the guardian ad litem conducted her evaluation. Sophie stayed every other night, and when she wasn't there, I still found myself listening down the hall for her little footsteps. That kid had a way of filling a home even when she wasn't talking. She hummed while she brushed her hair, tapped her fingers when she did homework, whispered to the old wooden dollhouse I had fixed, moving the little family figures into different rooms as if she were giving them a better life inside miniature walls. The first night she slept over, she crawled into bed with me around 2 a.m. Didn't say a word, just wrapped an arm around my chest like she was afraid I might disappear. Still here, I whispered in the dark. She nodded against my shoulder and didn't let go. The guardian ad litem came that Thursday afternoon, a woman named Grace in a navy blue coat, clipboard in hand. She inspected the house from top to bottom, taking notes, asking questions. Where does Sophie keep her school projects? In the hall closet. Third shelf. Who helps her with homework? I do. And sometimes Ms. Hernandez at school. When she calls you Dad, how long has she done that? Since she was 3. Grace paused and studied me with soft, thoughtful eyes. That matters, Bryce, she said. More than you think. By the time she left, she had enough evidence to fill a folder of her own. I made dinner that night, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. Simple, but Sophie loved dipping the corners of her sandwich into the soup and declaring it fancy. She told me about school, about her friend Clara's new puppy, about a drawing she was making for the guardian ad litem. She said I can draw whatever I want, Sophie said. So I'm drawing you and me at the Christmas festival, the one with the popcorn machine and the ice sculptures. I swallowed hard. That was a good night. It was the best, she said, grinning wide enough to show the little gap from her missing front tooth. Moments like that made it all worthwhile. And then, just as the week was ending, Monica came back. It was the following Monday morning. It had snowed overnight, just enough to hide the cracks in the driveway. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when I heard a car door slam, loud enough to rattle the window. Then another slam. Then quick footsteps crunching on the snow. Then, bang, bang, bang. Open this door right now. Monica yelled. I set my cup down, took a slow breath, and walked to the front door. When I opened it, a gust of freezing air rushed in along with the sound of her ragged breathing. Monica stood on the porch, hair wild, coat unbuttoned, boots caked with snow. Her eyes were wide, almost frantic. You think you won? She shrieked. You think this is over? Monica, I said calmly. You have no legal right to be here. She pushed forward until her boots hit the threshold. That judge humiliated me in front of everyone. You ruined my life. I didn't ruin anything, I said. I told the truth. The court did the rest. Her hands clenched into fists. You stole my daughter. She's not a thing to be stolen, I said. And you know that. For a moment, her face twisted, not in anger, but in something that looked a little like fear, or maybe recognition. Then, just as fast, she pushed the feeling away. You think you're some hero? She hissed. Behind her, a car was idling in the driveway. When I looked past her, I realized it wasn't her usual SUV. It was her ex-husband's truck. And sitting in the driver's seat, watching with his arms crossed, was Derek. He didn't get out, didn't wave, didn't even look at her, just stared ahead, stone-faced. That's when I knew something had changed. Monica turned and followed my gaze. Can you leave now? She snapped at him. He didn't roll down the window. He didn't acknowledge her at all. He put the truck in reverse, backed out of the driveway, and drove away. Without a word. Monica spun back to me, eyes blazing. He's a coward, she said. A pathetic coward. You and him, both of you. I held the door. For your own good, I said quietly. You should go. She let out a strangled cry, pure frustration, pure breakdown, and stomped back into the snow. She slipped once on the ice, caught herself, and kept going, muttering curses under her breath as she disappeared down the sidewalk. I closed the door behind her, the sound muffled and final. 2 hours later, I opened my email and found a message waiting from Derek Daniels. Subject, about everything. I hesitated, then clicked. Bryce, I'm done with Monica. I didn't know about the lies. I didn't know she had filed for abandonment. I didn't know she was using Sophie to punish you. After that mess in court, I realized I don't want her in my life, either. I'm sorry for my part in all of this. I really am, for what it's worth. You're the only real dad Sophie has ever had. We're square. Derek, I let out a long breath. Not an apology, not a friendship, but an unexpected truth from an unexpected place. That afternoon, as the sun set in soft orange light across the living room, Sophie came up to the couch with something behind her back. I made you something, she said. I smiled. Oh yeah? She brought out a small wooden figure, one from the old dollhouse family set. The little wooden dad, only now she had painted the shirt brown like my Carhartt jacket, painted little flecks of gray in the hair, and on the base in clumsy, 10-year-old handwriting, she had written, Dad Bryce. She placed it in my hand. It looks like you, she said. I had to swallow before I could speak. It's perfect, kiddo. She leaned her head on my arm. Now we can fix everything, right, Dad? I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. Yeah, I said softly. We can. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I stood by the living room window and watched the soft porch light reflect on the snow. The revenge hadn't come from yelling or bitterness or getting even. It had come from letting the truth speak louder than the lies, from standing still while the person who tried to break me unraveled under her own choices, from showing up calm, steady, and honest when it mattered most, and from choosing Sophie every single time. Comment. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly choose self-respect. Setting boundaries is not about punishing someone else. It is about protecting your peace of mind. You do not always have to raise your voice for your truth to be heard. Often, integrity speaks loudest in the room, even when it is spoken calmly. This is a powerful reminder that healing begins when you value your well-being more than winning an argument. Kindness toward yourself sometimes means recognizing when it is time to walk away from an unhealthy environment. True strength is not found in having the last word, but in building a stable and loving world for those who depend on you. It is about choosing to respond with dignity instead of reacting with anger. Taking responsibility for your own happiness is the first step toward building the life you truly deserve. I hope this story encourages you to remember that your peace is always worth protecting, often in the quietest ways. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.